Are you hearing the call to reinvent? Well, this episode is the story of an amazing woman who zeroed in on her passion and created a beautiful new business model that allows her to spend her days doing exactly what she loves. Have you ever felt like there's something more you're supposed to be doing with your life, but you're not sure what? Welcome to She Made It, the podcast that uncovers the journey to living a life that feels more like you. I'm your host, Elle Zimmerman, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Clara.
Hi, Elle. How are you today?
I am great, Clara. I am excited about today's interview. In fact, you introduced her to us, Mindy Staton. She is a floral designer and the owner of Two Little Buds Florist and Morning Sun Flower Farm, along with her mom and her farmer husband.
Yes. I'm so excited about this episode. I am obsessed with all things floral.
And okay, so then what is your favorite flower? Do you have one?
Yes, it's very specific. It's an English garden rose. I guess I could be even more specific than that. I don't have a specific favorite garden rose, but there's just something really special about heirloom roses with lots of petals and that actually still have the classic rose scent. So I could go on and on about that, but...
Well, and that's like, I don't even know kind of what you're talking about. So
yeah.
How did you, I'm curious, like how did you hone into that specific flower?
So I studied abroad in London when I was in college, and all over the city they have parks, and in almost every park they have a rose garden. And the roses there really do smell like a fake rose scent, but even better. And when roses were bred for an American climate, they bred them so that they don't have as many petals and they don't have their smell anymore because English roses can't survive in really hot or really cold weather. So when Shakespeare says a rose by any other name would smell as sweet, roses really are supposed to smell amazing, but we just don't really have them in America. A couple gardens here and there do, but they're just really special.
That is so fascinating. I'm so glad I asked that question.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about it.
So I have to share with you. So my favorite flower is the Ostromeria. Sometimes it's called the Alströmerias. And the reason why I love that flower is because when I got married, we actually couldn't afford too many roses.
Yeah.
And I didn't want the carnation version of a low budget floral design. And so the designer that I worked with recommended roses with variegated ivy and this Ostromeria flower, which is just this very loose sort of wild flower. And it's very inexpensive, but I think my floral designs and my bouquets were the most beautiful part of my wedding because of that flower.
That.
Yeah.
That's so special. I did have garden roses in my wedding bouquet too, and they did smell amazing, and they were very expensive. So,
hey, priorities, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, today's guest is going to share with us her deep passion for flowers and all things beautiful, those things beauty that are found in nature. And she specializes in wedding. She teaches floral design, and she's so unique in that she creates memorable experiences for groups on her flower farm. And her story is one of reinvention. Like, she makes her dreams come true in this very inspiring story. And she shares how she's brought joy and beauty to people's lives, particularly in the middle of a pandemic.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear this one.
So first of all, welcome to She Made It, Mindy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I know that this is a super busy time for you. I know that you are, from what you've shared with me, you kind of spend your time between the flower boutique, the design studio, the farm itself. So where are you today, and kind of what has your day looked like so far?
I am at the studio, the flower shop in Hamilton. And this morning I was down at the farm watering. So it's been quite the morning.
Yeah. So what I'd love to do, because you have a very unique business model and a very unique sort of we have this vision of a florist shop and a floral designer, and so I'd love to start with you kind of just giving us an overview of what is Two Little Buds.
Well, Two Little Buds is my mom and I. So we started this adventure in 2007, and it's grown quite a lot over the years. Um, in 2015, we started our own flower farm. So a normal Monday and Tuesday for me is harvesting flowers, planting, playing with my dogs, feeding my goats, doing the farm life. And then I have to switch to working at the flower shop on Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays. And on those days, we're doing wedding appointments with brides. We're creating arrangements for the upcoming weekend's events. And then we're also opening up the shop for walk-in sales. So we kind of like to call it a farmer's market flower shop. So people are coming in and they're purchasing the flowers that we harvest that morning.
Which is so cool, like this yin and yang of like your hands in the dirt and then the beautifying of the flowers for people to enjoy. I love that. So I know that you shared with me sort of how did you get into floral design, and how did it what's the evolution of how it ended up where it is today?
Well, I mean, when I was younger, my mom gave us, all of us kids, a little garden. So I've been gardening my whole life. My siblings all like to do vegetables, but I was the flower girl. So I've always just enjoyed working outside and growing things. So when I was in college, I really wanted to go into landscape horticulture and do more design. And while in school, I worked at a couple flower shops, and I just kind of fell in love with the idea of myself owning one. And then from there, it was just figuring out how to achieve that.
So what was your actual college degree in? Like, is it in horticulture?
Yes, landscape horticulture.
Okay. And then, so then I know that didn't you have more of a traditional florist shop to start?
Yeah, when mom and I first started, we opened up our retail store in Bridgewater Falls, which was more of a like outdoor shopping center, where we were anchored by like Target and Best Buy and the bigger chain stores, and then in the middle of all that was this little flower shop that I think it just people loved it. So we did normal flower shop things in the beginning. We would take every order that came our way, and I had a hard time saying no, and I still have a hard time saying no to people. But yeah, we would do funerals and prom and weddings, and so I would be doing deliveries, and then I would be doing marketing, and then I would be answering emails. And after doing that for so long, I just became really burnt out, and I wasn't enjoying my life. I just was torn in too many directions. So I started following Florette, which is one of the like leading farmer florists on Instagram, and I fell in love with her lifestyle. And lucky enough, Mom and I went out to Washington State and attended one of her last on the farm workshops, and I came away from that experience just so inspired. So luckily enough, my husband's parents own about 150 acres, and they deeded us 40 of them. So now we just started, I jumped into growing flowers, didn't know anything about it. I'm still learning, but we're in year 5. So it's been very life-changing for me.
Yeah, I love that you're describing sort of like, we go through our education and there's like a way to do something and there's a history in certain industries, and the florist industry is very, like, there's a very specific way that we as the consumer have traditionally engaged with florists. And so jumping into that old model, for you, it became so stagnant, so grinding, so like in a rut. And so what I love about your perspective is that you were clearly, as an early entrepreneur, understanding that, okay, yeah, I don't like to do some of the business things that a new entrepreneur has to do, but for you it went beyond that. You were able to say, you know what, this just isn't the lifestyle I want. This isn't the way I want to engage with flowers, to engage with customers and those enjoying flowers. And, thank goodness for mentors, right? For those, yeah, for those that have gone ahead of us. And again, you're the one that saw that spark, took the leap of faith, went across country, and made this massive change. And I would call that, this connection to your gut, to your like internal guidance. And then obviously having your husband who is willing to jump in with you, and I'm guessing your mom too, right? But there had to have been moments of like, holy cow, what am I doing? This is not the typical way of doing this, and this is out of my comfort zone. And so how did you address that in that pivot, in that reinvention?
I think for me, I just kind of take it day by day. I did kind of take it day by day in the first couple of years that we started growing our own flowers, and um, I've become okay with uncertainty.
That's really important to share.
So, when the first year of growing flowers, we planted like 3,000 tulips outside, and all of them got eaten by deer. So I didn't have any tulips the next year, but that was okay. I learned to not put them outside.
That is really funny. That's a whole different spin on job security.
Yeah. So I'm just okay not knowing that I'm going to, whatever I'm getting into next, I'm okay knowing that it may not work out.
Yeah, so how do you, because so many people are afraid to take that sort of a risk, because if it fails, it could be pretty detrimental to their business, to even their ego, their confidence. So even though you're okay not knowing, what's kind of like the biggest failure? What's the biggest, I guess maybe this, yeah, I guess failure. What's a risk you took? You didn't know what was coming and it didn't work. Maybe, is it the tulips?
Well, yeah, for sure. But and that happens every season. Um, and that's something that I think flower farming in general, you're working with so many different things, the weather, insects, and so every year I'm faced with some sort of failure, but you just, for me, you just move on, you figure out another way, or you just don't grow that type of flower, or.
Right. So you look at it as an opportunity to
Yeah,
grow
sure.
and learn, and yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What was in that reinvention, in that shift between your 2007 up to 2015, discovering that, boy, this doesn't work, and then you get this spark of inspiration. A year later, you start the farm. What was the scariest moment in all of that? Like, did you ever have a moment where you're like, I don't think I can do this? I have,
I have that every day almost.
yeah. And how do you push through that?
I don't know, really, in my mind, I don't have another option,
Yeah, that's good. I think, yeah, because people can get stopped through like the paralysis analysis, like, or they can get stopped by failure. And one of the, I think, just again, understanding more about your business model, I think one of the things you've done brilliantly is in your reinvention, you've also, what's the word, where you've expanded the options that you offer. So you have other streams of income, other streams of, customer engagement. Tell us a little bit about how all that grew, because now you do so many cool things like the bridal engagements, and you do these workshops, and share a little bit about how the evolution of those things.
Well, I think the core to what I where I want this business to go is bringing fresh local flowers to our customers. So, when COVID hit and our retail store was closed for a few months, we had so many flowers blooming, spring flowers blooming in the greenhouse. And for some reason, my next venture was to take Two Little Buds mobile. I wanted to do a flower truck. And I went ahead and did that. I purchased the truck, and that was right before COVID. So I had this cute flower truck, lots of flowers, and a beautiful house in the country. And my only thought was, let's share these flowers. How am I going to do that? And decided to have the flower truck out at the end of our lane, stock it with flowers. People made reservations to pick up loose stems, and we did a pay what you can system. And just because we had so much and I couldn't see these flowers go to the compost bin. So sharing that and making people feel better was definitely the only thing I could think to do. So the first time that we did it, posted on Instagram, and the flowers, I mean, we probably had 1,000 stems on the truck, and they were all gone by like 10:30. So it was like an hour and a half. And people were driving out to the country, some from like Cincinnati and Kentucky, and, just to grab, and it just worked out so well because people needed something to do, and they needed a little bit of hope, and they needed flowers. So they didn't mind taking a drive out to our house and picking stems. So that was a big deal for us because it made me feel good. It made other people feel good. And we got to not throw all of our flowers in the compost bin.
Yeah, and what's so incredible is that you had the vision, you had the intuitive knowing that you had this desire to have the flower truck, and so you had everything in place prior to COVID. And who would have known that this would be your way of, because you talked about your mission being to bring fresh flowers to your customers.
Yeah.
And having the creative mind and the vision and that gut knowing to, okay, how can we live up to our mission in this new, incredibly unexpected, unpredictable way? And when you did the pay what you can model, how did that end up in terms of when you look at the business side of it and the income side of it? How did that go with customers?
Well, I mean, for me, obviously I wanted to make money, but that wasn't the main goal for me. And I think as long as I went into that thinking that way, then I was okay with what people ended up giving me because it was what they could give me. But it was really quite cool how it turned out, because it's like some people would just pay what they could, and then others would step up and they would just kind of donate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they would end up paying more. So in the end, it worked out, and it kept my little farm alive. And I was able to pay myself. And um,
Isn't that just great? I mean, I think here you go with this motivation and this real genuine desire to bring joy, to share the fresh flowers. And then by leaving it up to the individuals, by leaving it up to people, they then have an opportunity to give back to you
right,
in a way that serves them beyond even the flowers.
right. I think as long as you just kind of think of your, and that's the way I want our business to be run. I mean, if you if you care about other people, it shows up in your work and it shows up in your flowers, and people just kind of feel your passion and kindness that
Mm-hmm.
just really want to make them feel better. And that as long as I can keep that up, then
Yeah.
um, I think we've got a good future.
Yeah, and then I mean that's a super cool story and I agree with you. Kindness is the key, just being kind and then it kind of like multiplies in the work you do. But you have other super cool entrepreneurial ideas that you have since the farm has opened and prior to the pandemic that you were doing. Like you shared with me like your dinners at the greenhouse and part of community supported agriculture programs. And so share with me a little bit about, I love the idea of dinner at the greenhouse and the reason I want you to share that is because it's just sort of giving our listeners this like peek behind the curtain in this old model of doing business, the way the florist industry was, and this new way, but then how beyond the new way, this farm to fresh experience, how Mindy continued to lean into her joy, into her passion, and bring her mission to life with the fresh flowers to her customers. But share that idea because it's super cool.
Well, our first farm to base was, oh gosh, the first year that we grew flowers, so 2015. Um, and I have this problem with being a little too ambitious with my goals. So I wanted, we decided to do the farm to base. So we would throw it out there and see if anybody would be interested in coming out to the farm and having dinner and cocktails and listen to music and eat dinner and cut flowers. And we would show them how to arrange a pretty bouquet. And to me, that sounded like a wonderful night. So I thought maybe other people would be interested in it. And I was like, oh yeah, we could totally have like 100 people out here. And which now we limit it to like 25 people because the first farm to base was way too many people. But it was such a
But how interesting, though, just let me interject really quickly. How interesting, though, that the very first one, you had too many people. Not many entrepreneurs have that problem. So you obviously had a great idea, but keep going because you said now you're down to a more intimate group and
yeah. I mean, the first one was great. We had plenty of flowers because the first year that I started growing flowers, I grew the like really easy stuff like zinnias and cosmos and planted so many zinnias. It was like half of our field was zinnias. So I had plenty of flowers for it. I knew that. But it was just it was a lovely evening. It turned out perfect. The weather was perfect. And for me, I feel as if people really like to connect with nature, and we have a venue that people can come out and do that. It's beautiful. My sister-in-law has horses right next to us. Houston Woods is across the street from us, which is a beautiful state park. And the flower farm obviously is pretty, but people really, when they come out there, I was very worried that there was going to be a few weeds, and I don't know. I just was worried that people would think it. I was worried I wasn't going to live up to people's expectations. But the first like couple of cars that pulled in, they open their door and they're just in awe of this beautiful land. I was just like, my God, I'm so lucky to live here.
yeah.
So, and I think just people being out in nature and seeing woods and just experiencing an evening outside was good for them, good for their soul. So,
So when they show up now, what do they do? Like, what's the experience like now that you've sort of done it a while and you've sort of honed in on what really
yeah, so we
works?
just limited it to 25 people. They arrived on my lane. They drive down my lane. It's wooded. It's very real pretty. And then they get to walk like the path down to the greenhouse, because the greenhouse is like 500 feet from our home. And that's a really pretty wooded walk. And then so they walk over the hill, and then they see the two greenhouses just full of flowers. And um, we have a big tent set up outside and tables, and we do flowers on the tables. And um, my dad plays music. Sometimes my brother plays music. We offer them a cocktail, and then they just kind of browse around the flower farm and listen to music. And it's so interesting, because it's like people instantly are like, I feel like their blood pressure goes down, because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I can relax and, just have a good evening. So,
Do they eat dinner?
oh yeah, yeah. So we just kind of wait for everybody to arrive. There's always people who cannot find our home. We are definitely in the country, but so yeah, people just kind of mingle around, cocktails, and then we'll do like a little introduction, and then everybody can meet the team, and then everybody finds their seat, and we serve them a wonderful dinner. And after that, I do a little presentation on how to arrange with the flowers that they cut. And then we let them loose in the fields, and then they just help themselves to whatever they find pretty.
Oh, that's so cool. But I love how you say you let them loose. We let them loose. And then they're allowed to pick flowers and bring them home with them?
Yeah, and then we have a container all set up for them after they get back from harvesting, and they arrange the flowers that they cut.
I love this idea. You are so what keeps coming up as a theme in this that is I think unique to you, and I just want to make sure I point it out because so many of my listeners are budding entrepreneurs. They're curious. They want to make a pivot or they want to go through a reinvention. And a couple things that you shared when you were describing that experience is that you have this sense of gratitude. You know, you wanted it to be perfect for your guests, but then when you got the feedback on their arrival, it gave you the opportunity to step back and go, "Oh my gosh, I am so lucky that I have the opportunity to live in a beautiful place like this, and now to share that with others." And I think the other thing you talk about is you talk about being ambitious and that you have this desire to grow and how can we do more, and I know a lot of that comes from, I'm sure you're I just know you're a super creative person, and it shows up obviously because you're a designer, but also entrepreneurialism can be very creative. But my question, I mean, I guess first of all, would you agree that you're like a creative entrepreneur? Do you identify with that?
Yeah, I think I always try to. Well, I get this from my mom. My mom always tries to find a better way to do things. She's always been like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very much the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so,
And that takes creativity.
yeah, for sure. So what you've mentioned a couple times is, in that desire for something better, how can we do more? You have, it appears to me that you have this really deep trust of your gut, of your knowing. And I would just love to ask you, how do you trust your gut?
um,
How do you know?
I don't know. Everybody has the voice, right?
But I don't know. Some people say I don't know how to trust my gut. I don't have that voice. Like, how do you kind of zero in on that for yourself? How does it show up?
um, I don't know. I mean, I do a lot of thinking when I'm harvesting flowers, and an idea will pop in my head, and I'll be like, well, how could we pull this off? And then for me, I don't have any other voice that says don't do it. So I just do it.
I love that. So, do you think you ever had a voice that said don't do it?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And so where did how were so now why don't you? Can you identify that?
I think because after I tried some new things and they worked out, I gained confidence.
Mhm.
And so as you continue to do that, you feel good about yourself and the path you're on, and you want to feel that way again.
Yeah.
I think it's a little addictive.
Yeah, I talk about that when I work with women, and I talk about something called moodling, that we have to moodle. And you said that your best ideas often, not always, but probably often come when you're harvesting, when you're working with your hands, you're out in nature, you're doing something physical that allows your heart and your head to kind of open up. Maybe would you agree with that? Does that feel?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so finding those opportunities to moodle, whether it's a nature walk or journaling, some people love to do journaling or auto writing or working with their hands, even baking or sewing, those times where we're physically engaged but we're mentally kind of taking a bit of a break can I think drop in great ideas for people.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The other thing you talked about how you have a track record, like you've taken these little chances, these little leaps of faith, and they've paid off. And yeah, and what I call that is I call that dabbling. Like how can we dabble in a direction of something that we love, that we want to try? Because people often feel there's this all or nothing. I have to make a gigantic jump off a cliff to something different or new. And I encourage, just through you, the way you've demonstrated, how can you just take little steps, take these little bets, these little actions towards something, and it's a practicing for the big leap.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I really do. I think it comes down to just trying to find better ways to do things, to keep learning, to keep growing, to um, find happiness in my career.
Mm-hmm.
So
What would you say is your zone of genius? Like where are you like best in your business?
I think making people happy. I think that is my main. I think I'm good at that.
That is so fascinating that as an what was it, a horticulturist or a flower designer, even an event planner, that your zone of genius is really focused on relationships and influence and impact on others.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So how do you get to I guess how does that show up in your work most?
Um,
Like I'm guessing you probably don't do the accounting.
no, my cousin does that. She's a
Right.
CPA. No,
Yeah.
I hate paperwork. um, I don't know. I think growing flowers shows how much, because it's hard work. It's like, it's not easy work. And I think all of the effort and time and money, and it shows up in the beauty of the flowers. So
Yeah, and going back to your mission about bringing the fresh flowers to the person, to the customer.
right, I went to Switzerland a few years ago with my husband, and um, I found it so interesting that all of these homes, they all had gardens. They all had vegetable gardens. There's like no lawns. Nobody cuts their grass. And these people would just go out in their yard and they would cut fresh flowers and they would get their vegetables. And I'm just like, why aren't we like that?
Yeah, instead we put fertilizer on our grass and
Right.
yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting and inspiring.
But I think you said it though. It's hard work.
Yeah, it's not easy.
And we're not raised, like you had the privilege or the opportunity for your mom to teach you gardening as a child.
Right.
And I don't think we sort of have lost that art a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. I
Mhm.
think people are they move too fast.
Mhm.
Every day is just go, 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 go. You're never like, you know, taking time to enjoy.
Stop to smell the roses.
Yeah, you're never all the good stuff. You know what I mean? That's around you. You go to McDonald's and you get fast food, and you do click list, and I don't know. I just don't think. I think people need to slow down a bit.
Yeah, but that's again what is the beauty of your business is that that's what you provide them. You said you have to know what you love, and you know that that's what you love. You love the beautiful, slower paced, have an experience, enjoy nature. And so now that's the way you get to make people happy.
Yes.
So that's awesome. So for our last question, or if there's anything else you'd love to share, but my last question for our conversation today, which by the way, I love your energy, Mindy. I love, you have this exuberant sort of joy in what you do that is also a key to your success. So I don't want to go too far without just saying thank you for being, sharing that.
Oh, I've enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah. So if you were going to give business advice to the younger you,
Ah,
what would you and again, if sort of the theme of our conversation today is reinvention.
I would say know your worth for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you first start out, you don't, or at least I didn't understand that what I had to give people was worth something. Um, because if you don't, and I've dealt with this, people will just kind of take advantage of your kindness. So I think knowing that you can bring something good to this world, that, um, just knowing your worth, I think I would have told myself, you are an awesome person.
Yeah, and do you say that as a internal knowing, or because I would think that shows up in confidence and, like you said, contribution. But what about or I should say, are you also talking about the external? Because as a business person, that would translate into how much do I charge?
Right, right. I think both.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like for you, have they worked together? Did one come before the other?
Um, I think it was more like what to charge in the beginning. But then it also, I didn't have as much confidence when I first started out. So I just knew that I needed to not work my butt off um, to not be able to make my business successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I definitely think it was external and then internal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
External kind of drove the internal change.
Sure. Yeah, because the external is like, are we a viable business or not? And then I'm guessing that your reinventions and your risks and your successes along the way help fill the well of the internal worth.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody wants to feel good inside, so I think as you grow older and become more confident,
Sure. So, Mindy, what I'd love to do is close out our episode with the best way people can learn about you. How can they find you?
I think Instagram's one of my main platforms.
And what's your Instagram?
It's just two little buds.
Awesome. Okay. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. And yeah, it was such a pleasure chatting with you today. And thank you for stepping out of the farm and into a little secret. Mindy had to record this episode from her van today. So we are reinventing the best way to get our podcast episode with her very interesting and dynamic work life. And again, thank you, Mindy. It's been a pleasure, and have a great day.
Yeah, you too. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
That episode was so fascinating, and I think that my favorite part is that Mindy really just let herself make decisions based on what was beautiful. Like, she decided, you know what, I don't want to be in a mall anymore. I want to be in an old building in a historic downtown area. Or I want to work on a flower farm and I want to have more boutique, beautifully custom designed bouquets. And I just love that she sort of let beauty and aesthetics guide her path as she was making new decisions and reinventing.
Yeah, it was. And then the fact that as she shared what she loved, that's really what helped grow her business.
Totally, yeah. Once she made it more authentic to her, it became more successful.
If you, like Mindy, are in a place where you're really ready to reinvent and your curiosity is piqued toward a direction, but you're not exactly sure where it's going or what it might look like for you, I love having these conversations. And if that's something you would like to do, I offer free discovery calls. We just spend some time chatting about your ideas, your direction, and then hopefully come out with some plans and some paths to take. You can go to my website, lzimmerman.com, and you'll see Discovery Call, and I'd love to connect.